It's 8 o'clock here on the east coast of these United States in Charleston, South Carolina on Sunday, June 5th, 2016. I'm Warren Sprouse, and this is the Bible Forum. We're going to be here the next couple of hours, too. Sometimes we go a little over, talking about life. We're going to look at it from a biblical perspective. There are any number of things that we're going to talk about. I will tell you about them before we get too far into it. But I want you to know that we're here for you every Sunday night. We have a Facebook page, we have a Twitter account. You can go to the YouTube page. You can watch the show if you can't be here on Sunday night between 8 and 10 p.m. Eastern. You can pick it up right here from the website. All you have to do is click the little thing, the arrow in the video, and start watching. It'll work you through all of them. If you still have a hankering, you can click where it says Ustream on down the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. Take you to another page, and there's 198 of these things. It goes back for, I don't know, almost 2 years. But to your heart's content. Want you to be a part of the program. We have a call-in number, 843-732-0249, 843-732-0249. We have a chat room open. We've got some folks in the chat room now. We've got Colin from soggy northeastern Florida. I just was listening to the weather coming home from church, and they were talking about rain in Florida for, I guess, all night or something. No storm, just kind of going to wet you up a little bit and sog everything down. And we had that and will for the next couple of days. I send out an email every week. It looks like this. You need to sign up. Send me an email at thebibleforum@gmail.com. Put you on the list, and it'll tell you the kinds of things that we're going to be talking about. We're going to tell you everything that you need to know about an economic collapse when it comes. Not prophesying that there's going to be such a thing. Probably not any day soon. But if you're paying any attention to the world, you realize that this is a really good possibility for a number of reasons. But mostly we have too much information. When we were a little bit less techy, we didn't know anything about meteors and Yosemite calderas and all the other kinds of things that could go wrong and create problems and blow things up in your face. We know that now. So what do you need to know? We're going to talk about that. We're also going to talk about the end of moral attributes, or absolutes, I should say, in America. Barna's got a new study, the new poll they've taken. See how that matches up with what you believe. And what does that mean? What does that mean to me? We also have a national election wrapping up, starting to focus a little bit more, moving us toward November. Who are you going to vote for? If you're like most of us, your plan is to vote for the lesser of two evils. Which one you decide is the lesser evil is the one that you would most likely vote for. That's what we usually do. That's what I've done probably most of my adult life. I can't remember a great deal, maybe one or two presidential candidates in my lifetime that I felt comfortable saying, no, I think this is a good use of my vote. Mostly you hold your nose and you vote for somebody to keep the other guy from getting in there. Is that the way Christians should operate? Is that what we should do? If you vote for the least wrong of the two, are you not voting for someone who's wrong? Or at least not matched with you? And can you do that in good conscience? We also had an event this past week. A young kid, about 4 years old, I guess it is, fell into a gorilla pit. And we're not going to pick on the mama, not going to go there. But we're going to talk about some other things related to that, around about all of that. and I would direct you to my counseling webpage, trybiblicalcounseling.net. I've written a blog, an article about that. You'll recognize it because it's got a picture of the gorilla who is now dead and the little boy. It's entitled, Why Did a Little Boy Fall into a Gorilla Pen? We're going to talk about that in a little broader sense before the night is out. We also got word this week that Jan Crouch had passed away. You know Jan Crouch of TBN fame. It creates all sorts of questions, and the most logical question that it generates in my mind, and I think in the minds of many people, is whether or not this forms a crisis of faith for the charismatic community. But apparently, based on some of the reports out there and the comments that are being made, we're not allowed to say that. We can't go there. But we're going to talk about it anyway. On the prophetic side of things, the European Union wants to control national boundaries. It isn't something they put out there as a big banner. Every nation involved with the European Union is on board, but apparently this has come to the surface. It's part of their policies that they would like to move forward toward. I don't know off the top of my head whether it's in case of attack or whether it's just something they want to be able to do. And trust me when I tell you that if there were significant or serious provocation, they'd do it. But I'm not sure that these countries know that that's going to happen. Great Britain is fixing to exit, or try, or at least vote to exit the European Union. That'll be later on in June. People have an opinion on both sides. Many Brits didn't want to get in the first place. They see the European Union going down in flames financially, if no other way. And of course, if it weren't for Germany, they would have gone bankrupt by now. The European Union's Commission is also moving to issue identification cards. This is something they want to do. An ID for those of you who want to go on Facebook or Twitter or Reddit or any of the other social networks. They want you to have an ID. Now that is just quite plain and simple a way of controlling or at least understanding who it is, where they live, who they are, that are out there saying and doing these things. There's also a question that I've asked on the website. Do you hate Muslims? You're a Christian. Do you hate Muslims? Well, one pastor wants us to stop doing that. One pastor is making a serious effort to get Christians to not hate Muslims. And I have a question. If you're truly born again of the Spirit of God, do you hate Muslims? Raise your hand. You're truly a Christian and you hate Muslims. Raise your hand. No hands up out there. None at all. This is a tempest in a teapot. And I don't know why the preachers have to get involved in it except that they're ignorant. They just do not understand. We are Christians. We don't hate these people because they don't believe what we believe. I mean, within the Christian community, people don't believe what I believe, and we don't believe what you believe either. It just goes on and on and on, and it gets very, very confusing. We'll talk about some of that before we get too far down the road. 843-732-0249. Before we do get started, I have a picture I have to show you. I don't know if you're aware of this story. I found it quite by accident, but here are pictures of three little boys children, the type of which you probably have never seen in your life. You see those little guys? That's Roman and Rocco and Rohan. These are triplets who were delivered by cesarean section about 31 weeks into their gestation period. Rocco was 3 pounds 5 ounces. Roman was 3 pounds 6 ounces. Rohan was 3 pounds 10 ounces. They are the youngest of what is thought to be only a handful of naturally conceived sets of identical triplets. They reside in the UK. And the parents were shocked, as you might understand. They knew they were having triplets. They just didn't think they would be exactly what they are. As soon as they were born, the doctors, the nurses, whatever, did the DNA swabs to check to see what it was. And sure enough, that's the way they are. And Mama says Rohan is the loud one. He's always shouting. Rocco is normally quite laid back, but he can be feisty as well. And Roman is usually complaining that he doesn't want to share. Does it sound like children? It sounds like children to me. What version of the Bible are you using? I mean, there are a ton of these out there. And they just keep multiplying. Well, there's a new one. The religious news service is telling us about a new Bible translation. It's called Bible Emoji. It's the scripture for millennials. And the word is not spelled out, it's the number 4. Bible Emoji, scripture for millennials. I mean, after publishing the Twibble, or the Twible, I don't know how they pronounce that, which is all of the chapters of the Bible in 140 characters or less, you figured you pretty much had gone as far as you could go with this. Now they have an entire Bible. I haven't seen it. I don't know exactly how it works, but it's set up based on those little emoji things you have on your phone, your smartphone, or wherever, that you can just smiley faces, or whatever the things are, and the Bible is made up of that. What that does for people, I do not know. But surely it isn't something that is spiritually uplifting. It is just fascinating. It's just something interesting to do. We've been in the news, we're listening over the last several years to the Veterans Administration, and watching how unable they are to take care of our veterans. They complain that they don't have enough money, and then we find out that they have money for all sorts of things. And then we find out it's a leadership issue. Then we are told that they've got that all resolved, and now they're back in the news again because of one hospital somewhere that was just dispensing serious recreational kinds of drugs to people. The thing is out of control. Well, they have demonstrated again why they should not be allowed to run hospitals. These people are now considering what they call transition-related surgeries for transgendered veterans. They want to be able to do this moving forward. The rule change, first reported by Time last Thursday, would lift a long-standing ban and follow a similar change that was made in Medicare back in 2014. It says in part, and I quote, increased understanding of both gender dysphoria and surgical techniques in this area have improved significantly, and surgical procedures are now widely accepted in the medical community, accepted as medically necessary. In light of these medical advances and recent research, the VA would revise its regulation to remove the prohibition on medical services that are considered gender alterations. Now, it's not really clear whether this change was officially proposed, but it has shown up in their paperwork on some level somewhere. The VA has been barred from covering the actual surgeries since the 1990s. But now that it has become the cause du jour, they're going back into this business. This is your money being spent on people who one day wake up thinking, I'm a dog. You say, no, that's not it. The girl thinks she's a boy, the boy thinks she's a girl. Oh, you weren't here last week over in Great Britain. They have a whole tribe of these guys who dress up like dogs and want to be treated like dogs and called that way. It's not just male, female. And there was a story this week of a gal, and I've forgotten now when, I've got it in my stack someplace, but there was a gal teaching school who had a mastectomy, a double mastectomy, and instead of having surgery to replace the removed parts, she decided that she would stand there in the middle and be a generic gender, whatever that means. And she was on the verge of suing the Board of Education when they caved and said they would just simply pay her a penalty fee, $60,000, rather than go through the court case because they knew they would lose. What was her issue? Her issue was that the other teachers would not refer to her the way she chose to be referred. And I'm not saying that she wanted to be called a he or a she. She wanted to be referred to as a they. She didn't want a personal pronoun. And it upset her that when there were PTA things or open school things and parents would be around, the other teachers would refer to her or him, not they. And in meetings with parents, the administration would do the same sort of a thing. She just felt like she was being discriminated against, and the ACLU went to bat for her, and the school district caved rather than go through the case, because they knew they would lose. And so now they have to, they had come up with, bathroom facilities, private, for her, but she said the other teachers were using them, meaning that she had to wait. She thought it was deliberate. There's no indication of that. And now there's policies being issued in the school district for teachers, administrators, and others that they cannot violate this policy. They have to call her they. It's just an amazing thing. An amazing thing. Are you watching the election cycle? You're doing that. I mean, if you have television that you turn on, if you watch a news program or you have your car radio on to a news, you can't get away from it. And this is part and parcel of what we've learned to live with in the last 10 years, that these election cycles never end. But we're learning now that as we get closer to convention time, the violence is starting. It has always been. Back in, 87 or something in Chicago, whenever that was, 77, I don't know, can't remember the dates. But there was just crazy violence in those days, and we're starting to see it again. But it looks like it's the Bernie Sanders crowd or the Hillary crowd who are starting trouble at Trump rallies and going after the Trumpsters. Um, Donald lashed out against these people in California, uh, trying to get them to stop, to shame them, I suppose. But these people are in their face. What the media is not generally saying, but I heard on the Sean Hannity show one day, driving down the road, a guy called in, said he was there, and some member of the media came up to him, I guess maybe the people he was with, and wanted to know why they weren't demonstrating, and actually entered into some dialogue to get them to, gin up a little bit so that they would get it going. They brought the cameras, nobody was doing anything. Isn't that amazing? Are you shocked? I'm not shocked. We're now talking about these riots, but we're not allowed to use the word riot. We're now calling them demonstrations. In the old days, if people intimidated other people, pushed them around, threw raw eggs at them, interfered with business by blocking the doors and things of that nature, it would be called a riot. Now we're calling them demonstrations. We're terrorizing people. We're disrupting what people have a right, in some cases they have a permit to do. We're using the vulgar and the vile language and all the rest of it. People are getting hurt, but it's just a demonstration. Huh? There's just too much at work here to talk about at any length, because we all know how this is unfolding. We're going to go through the rest of the show. Have you taken a look at the websites? You do know what they are. TheBibleForum.net. That's where you are now. And I mentioned TryBiblicalCounseling.net, but there's also LivingGodly.net, and there's TheViewFromZoar.com. And now there is Bible Institute of Charleston.org. Have you gone over there? I had recently listened to a number of Christians, preachers, and others holding forth and trying to explain various issues, only to realize that if they had taken my course on hermeneutics, they wouldn't be saying the things they're saying. You live in a world like I do where everybody is trying to tell you that it's a matter of opinion. No, my friends, it's not a matter of opinion. The interpretation of the written language is a science. It's not an art. And you would know that if you signed up to take the course. Hermeneutics is the first of a series of 10 doctrines that we're covering in this basic course. You're not going to be allowed to take any other courses till you go through those 10, because you honestly will not get anything out of anything else. It'll just be interesting, but you won't learn a whole lot. And you need to go to the website, Bible Institute of Charleston.org, and you need to sign up. You can click the PayPal button and go over there and pay the fee, and that will sign you up, or you can send me an email and that will sign you up. But either way, I'd love for you to get involved. Every Monday morning you get an email, a video in your inbox, and you have time. You can sit and watch it as many times as you want. There's 4, 5, or 6 lessons to each course. Even after you're finished, which will be 4, 5, or 6 weeks, you have access to the video for another month or so. Take the notes you want, get them all squared away. You want credit, you take the test, you write your essay. You don't want credit, that's fine. Doesn't matter. The credit isn't transferable anywhere. It just says you were successful in completing this. I want you to do that. I want you to buy my books. I've got 2 of them. One's called Breaking Out. The other's called Frontal Assault. I'm working on a third. My editor said that the chapter that I submitted last time was really good. She really liked it. I don't know what that meant about the other 2, but that's another. I can't go there. I think you'll find it interesting. I wish I could tell you what the title is, but I haven't come up with one yet. We get a little bit closer, I'll show you some of that. Might put some of that together and actually do a segment just on the book, at any rate. Stay with me. I've got to save this, and then we'll get back a little bit later on. We're going to look at some events that are going to move us, or at least get us involved in the coming strife that the Bible refers to as the Great Tribulation, some of the things that are going on in the world. So stay with me. I'll be right back.